And one.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Parent Enrollment Committee meeting. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships, both historic and modern, with territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Welcome to Parent Enrollment Committee meeting. This area is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous people are the traditional and treaty territory of Mississauga Island First Nation, the Mississaugas people, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, live, and learn. Before we move on to agenda, I just wanted to introduce Joanne to everyone. She will be helping with PIC now that Louise have left us.
Welcome. So welcome and direct any questions you have to her if you ever need to reach out through engagement DDSB.ca. That will go right to her.
So moving on to agenda, I just would like to put the motion forward to get the agenda approved so we can start the meeting. Yes. Arshie. And can somebody second me? Yeah. Who's talking it? Patrick. As we kick off our first meeting for the new year, I thought it would be helpful to review some information as a group ahead of getting into the rest of our agenda tonight. As a reminder, the role of PIC member is to provide advice to their school board on parent engagement and ways to communicate with parents, develop strategies and initiatives the board could use to effectively engage parents in improving student achievement and well-being, share information with and supporting the work of all school councils in the school board. Reminders for our PIC meeting. This is a live stream and recorded public session. If you're joining us via Zoom, we ask that you have your cameras on during our meeting. We adhere to our bylaws, particularly Section 9 relating to demonstrating decorum and respect for other members of the PIC. Please do not share individual student, teacher, school concerns, or information in this public forum. If you have an individual question, we can support online. As we do not have actual norms created for our committee, we will be asking people to provide some ideas that we can use as agreed upon meeting norms moving forward for our time together. By way of email, we'll be seeking your input as members to review some ideas and share information in order to collaborate in establishing our official norms, which we hope to share at the next meeting. Please look out for that email so that you can be part of the process as well. Thank you. Now moving on to our DDSB department presentations. We would like to welcome some of DDSB staff members representing various departments who are here to share some information with us this evening. We will begin with Monique Mueller from Student Success.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm here with my colleague, Aldeep Chahal. He is the Student Success Facilitator, and for guidance and pathways, Centers for Success is a big portfolio. I am the Student Success System Lead, and I have the portfolios for pathways, guidance, and a variety of other programs. So today we're here. Oh, and Stephen Neville, sorry. The most important one. And Stephen Neville, who always says yes to all of the great ideas we have to support student success, is here to support us this evening. Superintendent, yes, Superintendent Neville. Okay, so this diagram here really does show our guiding principles that all students can be successful. And if we take a look at the starting place and the end goal, and often, students are only seeing the success at the end of the road. But as adults, we know that, that journey has a lot of bumps and humps and backwards and forwards. And it's not really that straight line. And that's one of the things that we really like to let students know, that, you know, there's going to be some successes and some failures, but we're going to learn along the way. But our student success department is really there to help them reach their goals, no matter how long it takes and no matter what path they have. So the guiding principles of student success is that all students can be successful. Students can be successful, that all students can be successful. Success comes in many different forms. There are many pathways to success, and really success looks different for each student. And at this time, I'm going to pass this on to Khalid, who will explain one of the two great new initiatives that have come out of DDSB to help students succeed.
Thank you, Minnie. So many of you are beginning to know me. I come with a medical nurse perspective. When I took on this role, I've had the pleasure of working with my principal, James Plotnick, so in there, to kind of follow that leadership and see how I could, come as a resource to our board to try to make sure our parent engagement and student engagement is there. Part of it was I'm also new. So when people talk to me and ask me what we have to offer, it can be very overwhelming. And if you look at this diagram here, this is just my exercise I used with my guidance counselors. Tell me, hey, what programs do we offer? How do we articulate them to our parents and our students? It is the intention of our guidance teams to make sure that these programs are advertised throughout the school, but sometimes it's not being received at all. And that was the difficulty. So this gave some guidance and leadership. We sat down as a community kind of visualize how we could, roll this up to our families and the students so that they can see all the options starting to break down. With this, we came up with a new approach called 30 credits a month. And what 30 credits a month is, pretty much going back to Harley King's statement, there's no direct linear way in here for United States. We wanted to advertise all our possibilities. Some might have bumps in the road, and some might want a fast track, and that's okay too. So we wanted to make sure we showed it in a non-linear way. So if you go, so these approaches putting students in the driver's seat, designing a high school experience that aligns with their goals and passions. So the theme driving is something that landmark that all our students do in high school, right? They get their driver's license. So we wanted to tie it back to something that they'll engage in as well. Right? So student engagement is very important to us. Getting the information out to you is very important to us. And you can see from this slide here that, it's a lot of words for me to go to the students every single time to talk about our different initiatives, whether it be ASAD or CFS, dual credits, SAL. We have a lot of actors. If you ask me on a wrong day what CFS is, I might say, I don't know, what is that success, right? So it becomes very difficult and mouthful as well. And as a guidance person or counselor, it'll be harder sometimes to articulate that. You may have had a conversation around it, but to explicitly say it, we get stuck in our own jargon that the kids walk out wondering what CFS is, right? So there's different components that you can look at it, but we have a lot of different options that may apply to some, may apply to all, but we want really the focal point to be the families to wonder and ask those prompting questions. Hey, what is CFS? I don't know what that is. That's a conversation piece we can start with at home and to school.
And one of the other reasons that we felt that this was important is for transparency and consistency across the school board, so that it didn't matter what school a student went to, they were offered all of the available programs that they're entitled to as being an Ontario student. And as you can see, we have a lot of different programs. And so this also helps students and parents plan proactively prior to going into grade 9, and also to see some of the great options that we have to offer.
So this week, actually, this new calendar year launched 30 credits a month. And part of the 30 credits a month launch, we sent information packages for our grade 8 parents to connect with us on Thursday night on a webinar to get more information about transitioning from high school, elementary to high school, in which we'll go in depth with 3 credits families. On February 4th, we have a parent info night for all our high school parents and families to attend to get more information about their pathways in high school, and we'll be in planning for the credits. So with this, we've come up with these postcards. And the idea is to make it very, very centralized and evidence for families. If you scan the QR code, it will take you directly to the Correct Smiley site. And on there, you'll start seeing all the different options that we have available on our DDSB website. Our DDSB website that we're learning is very big. There's a lot of great information in our whole website. So we're slowly trying to kind of connect it all together, and it does take time to put it together. It's not where we want it right now, 100%, but we're getting there.
And it's continually evolving, so as things get updated, we're gonna make sure that it's updated in a timely manner, so that it reflects the program we have.
So these went out to all our reading parents as well as in all our guidance offices. You'll see that big poster. You see the whiteboard there as well. For families to walk in and scan if they forgot to take a look, it's there at their fingertip to scan and get on their 35th mile lane. Website will again bring all the information that is needed. But again, questions come up, it's just right in the prompt and then take it to your guidance teams to help find your child. On the 23rd, you'll have our 30 credit for my ladies guide, the interactive guide. Will be a PDF version online that's available for all of our families. It just needs a couple more days, just make sure it's AODA compliant, to make sure that it's accessible to all our families. So this roadmap really is what is the blueprint of 30 credit for my ladies. And as you look at 30 credit for my ladies, we try to make sure we represent all the different factors represented in all this. We started with, first of all, getting rid of the traditional grade 9, that's grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 song. However, you can see through the different transition colors and as well as credit counts, we still, one of our goals is to have 16 by 16. So that we're making sure that all our students at least have trackers to making sure that they're making their landmarks. However, there are any bumps in the road, and it doesn't mean if a student doesn't get 16 by 16, there aren't other supports available for them to take that. And we try to highlight that as well. You know, the topic see student success. We can see that there's a roadmap to our supports for student success, but it kind of comes back. So you go there, now you're back on track as well. On the very top here, you can see experiential learning opportunities. And this is something that 80% of students don't access, right? It's probably because they have their own path and plan made up, or may not consider it. We want to make sure there's an option for them. We don't want to hear from our families or our parents or our teachers that we didn't offer those opportunities. We're putting the information in front of you so that you can definitely tell them that's fine. Getting back to the unique set is that we want to be consistent in all our high schools. We have one more coming in September 26th. We want to make sure if it's a Darling Wilson with booster funding or for York, the lead principal, it's the same type of program. With that, you will also see after the experiential learning, again, scan me to back to the main website. So again, all our information is there. At the bottom, it takes you to my blueprint, the individual pathway plan, which is a goal for all our DDSB students to have their IPP complete for each grade, making sure that they've done their research in regards to backward design, looking at what they want to do after high school, and building courses on their timetable based on their path. Another thing that we're trying to move away from is that understanding from families sometimes that these guidance counselors picks your courses for them. Guidance counselors are there to aid and support students in their decision making and to give them the information that they need, but it's up to the student and the family to decide what pathways to go for the students. So we're trying to remove a lot of barriers with information as well. As you continue on as well, and it's we were trying to make this very inclusive as well. It's the purpose of all grade 9 students when they go to high school, whether they be a mainstream student or in one of our small classroom spaces, that they're going to high school and earning 30 credits. But life conditions could happen where they're trying to earn an OSSD, they could also want OSSD if that is what is required for them to move on to their next step or CO rates. Those options are all there available for them as well. And this one here is the one that, you know, again, we're putting out in front because we want to make sure that parents and families understand that the programming that best suits our students, and I may be biased in this, is in front of the class in the DDSB way. But we're also aware that there are external options out there as well. There's will there be music, credit, students can enter. There are language courses that could be earned through international languages, through Toronto Catholic, and other ministry approved private school credits that we earn. And those are the students and families' rights to pursue if they want to pursue. But we just ask you to have a conversation with the guidance teams to make sure that's the best step for your student. Did I forget anything?
Just a couple things. We wanted to make sure that we're capturing students who want to accelerate as well. So we provided the summer school options and night school options. So students want to accelerate for whatever reason they want. They also want flexible options sometimes in their timetables. They might be an elite athlete, or they might be pursuing some sort of a program that requires them to have a modified timetable. We also included Durham continuing education. So if you don't finish all of your credits, you can always come back and do it there, as well as our prior learning recognition program, which is for mature students and allows students to get a lot of their credits through once they've had their mature status, which is 18 now. And that'll provide them an easier opportunity to work towards their OSSD.
And you notice that we are trying to remove the stigma in some programs. So oftentimes some schools consider it to be a negative response for a student. I think, oh, well, it's blue, 407 blue, I mean, hey, you get a red if you want to, right? So those options are there as well. So we're trying to kind of align it with what students see every day, and that's why we want to make sure it is very responsive. On the back, so in our guide, in the middle of our guide, so I almost lost it. There is an opportunity for you to remove this from the book. And the idea is that there's a lot of roadmap water options there, but it's really looking at a chance for you to start picking your courses with your child so that they have not only their grade 9 year, but the 4-year plan, begin to think about it so they can start building topics. And the hope is that you revisit this yearly to say, okay, hey, you know what, we did our language research, we did our backward design, we looked at, we wanted to be an entrepreneur. But now we looked at it and still trades us up. You can cater it, change your courses, and so on. And all the information that's required for our new grade 9s starting September 2024, the requirements have changed. You can see that their requirements are probably right there at the bottom. If you have a child that is in grade 10 and grade 12, they still have the OC requirements from the past, which will be explicitly outlined here.
Yeah, that should be coming out in a couple of weeks, based on the schools, along with the postcards.
We also have 3 ways place mats to go to our schools. So this is 1. Number 2 and 3 would represent, 1 would be our assessment practices, which the hope is when you have your parent teacher meeting nights, teacher can split the backside and look at trying to shut down.
Observation, conversation, and product, but it's really outlining going success.
For success, that's what I forgot to say. And the third one I have to look at.
The third one, we have a tool that's for administrators and guidance. So when a new student comes, they can start to take a look at what the students have, talk about their interests, what kind of experiences they have. Do they do anything outside of school? Would it, qualify for a recognition of learning credit? Would they do a PLAR? It really lets them start working with the student to design the program that they need. Ultimately, our goal is that we're providing the flexibility for students to customize their course selections just like as they need, for whether it's their goals or their passions, whether it needs to meet certain needs outside of the school and responsibilities, and that they have the ability to make a pathway that is unique to them. And it also empowers parents and students to be able to have the language and the options so that when they do have those conversations with their guidance teams, they are understanding what those programs are and they can advocate to find out more information and to have access to that. So we're really excited about this. Really, it's nothing new. It is just ensuring that there's consistency. So it's not a new program. It is not new things that are available. It's just packaging in a way that ensures consistency and transparency across the system. And our second new exciting initiative is our new grade 7 and 8 student success teachers. So we know it takes a village to help students get to that success line. And one of the things that is really, really effective in high schools is our student success departments and our student success teachers. They're sort of the pivotal caring adult to liaisons between the principal and the guidance department and social work and all of the other supports we have to make sure that that student has access to everything they need. We did not have this in grade 7 and 8. And so one of the things that we have done is we have 6 student success teachers who are attached to a family of schools. And so normally in a school team, you would have your principal, your vice principal, you'd have ISS, you'd have your multi-language learner coach. We'd have our child youth workers, youth liaison workers, your classroom subject teacher, your community liaison workers, and your psychological services. This is an additional support that is there for each family of schools to help support students who need it. So some of the things that our student success teachers can do, and it's not limited to this, it's really unique to each school. And what we're finding is that every school has different needs and different needs. But a lot of our student success team is monitoring and tracking individual student progress. They're providing direct support, meeting with them one-on-one. They're promoting engagement and retention, especially for students who are finding that they're having a hard time with attendance in grades 7 and 8. So they're working closely with social workers and CYWs. They're helping with the transition from grade 8 to 9. So one of the things that was really important to our team is that it would be what I call a work transition. Traditionally, you'd have supports and then the students will go off to high school and then just be on their own. This way, our student success teacher is going to be attached to those students. And for those students who are finding some difficulty or anxiety, the first semester, they will be working with them and making sure that they've connected with a guidance teacher or a vice principal or a student success, someone that they know that they're now connected and they've landed and they're not just floating there in never land, trying to find their way. So this is one of the most important parts of the role. They're also looking at supporting career life planning, helping with some course selections if needed, or navigating my blueprint for backward design planning, re-engagement of students who aren't attending school and helping them have a safe place to come in when they do decide to re-engage and helping support those gaps. Student advocacy, working with parents and communities, and gap closing intervention. So these are just some of them. When we have our meetings each week, they go around and share the different things they're helping, and I tell you, there are 3 pages of different ways that they're supporting students. But we have found that the different principals and parents and students have said that this has been a really valuable addition to the support for elementary schools. And that concludes our presentation of our 2 new initiatives that we're hoping to help students find that success. Are there any questions?
I have one, and I'm an elementary parent, so I don't have any really, any touch points to high school, and high school is a long time ago for me. But I'm just thinking about the 30 credits my way. And I understand that you said this is nothing really new. This is just kind of solidifying it so that there's the transparency that you said. But is there any thought that a parent might look at that and say, okay, this is too much. Like, I just want you to just do what you're supposed to do. I just want my son or my daughter, my child to just do what credits they need to do. We don't have time to figure out what they want to do and this and that. So how would that be addressed if that's kind of the response that a parent might have?
Great thing for the question. And yeah, it is a long first look at it for the first time. The idea of 30 credits by way is really there's no prescribed way for any student to graduate. And we want to make sure that it's unique to every student's needs, making sure that they get what they deserve. In grade 9, really the transition is very streamlined. There's not many choices for them to take anyway, so that transition into high school makes it a bit easier. It's when you get into the new years, grade 10 to 12, that you need to explore more options. So that's where we hope we could start engaging our families to have this conversation with our schools. 80 or 90% of our students will continue to follow this plan as a traditional way because that's what they're most meant for. The one thing though is that the information that I share with our students needs to be somewhere for them to find this learning. And what ends up happening is that meaningful conversation sometimes when they're looking for it and not looking for them because their guidance also be too busy or they take that one time to build that courage to come to speak to guidance counselor. And guess what? He said. So this is why we have to make sure we have that information out there and try to start that piece of conversation so that we get momentum going and how those processes happen in their guidance offices.
And we're offering additional support. So our 2 online nights We'll also include MLL and ISS supports. And so that's a great way to learn about all of these programs and the traditional kind of courses you're gonna be taking grade 9 and later. Our booklet that we're at the 30 credits my way that's gonna be going out, that will also have explanations in there. And then always you have your guidance teachers or your team that you can consult with. And don't forget, you also have your VP and your principal. They're also people that you should be able to feel free to reach out to when you have questions about this. And so with all of that, they can help sort of bring down that anxiety, simplify everything. I know it's a lot sometimes to see, and it is overwhelming, but it is important that you know, and you and the children know what they can access or what they have available to them so they can map out their plan. So we are here to help with that, and we'll make sure that there's constantly resources put out there to help make it not seem so overwhelming.
And part of our student success team, we're hoping that they get out earlier enough, as well as we do our SHSM, so that by the time they get to 9, it's like second nature, right? So we're starting off, not really from the spot, just getting information out, which should be front and center, which is a role, but you know, with time, we'll get better.
For me, the real goal is to empower the students,
Yeah.
right? And they will understand the different programs and then be able to make choices. So it will be in their conversations with their guidance teachers when they're having their course selection meeting. It will be when they're sitting down with their student success teachers or when they're sitting down with their vice principal mapping out or their principal mapping out their plan. So yeah, and their parents and their teachers, their classroom teachers. So being for them to be able to know what's available, asking questions, is really going to empower them to be able to make some strong decisions. And then we're also here, so there's our contact information. You know, feel free to reach out to any of us. We can help that way.
I think the idea of the postcard was when those questions pop up at home, parent can say, hey, where's that postcard?
Yeah.
And then it takes you right to all the information you need to answer that question.
Recognizing and appreciating all of the information. I'm wondering, just because Lenny and I and a group of parents are on the Engaging Diverse Communities subcommittee, is there a plan for these documents to be translated into additional languages potentially?
We're right now with Google, you're able to translate them to different languages. It's something that we could work on. It's been a very large undertaking for all of us to do it, and even this week we're still making some edits to it. So when it's finalized, that's the second to it. So we'll try to make it more accessible.
Because I love what Stephen said about, you know, putting the students and the families in the driver's seat, right? And no, when he said it, but I
Stephen says it all the time.
I heard it. So, like, that's one of the things I think as our subcommittee is probably benefit from.
We're trying to switch the narrative for being parents and students who are having conversations and making the decisions. And the guidance teams are there to support that process and also find the information rather than guidance teams sort of selecting pathways for students. So that's our goal.
Thank you.
And I think something that I think about here is considering the diverse families that we serve, considering where families are coming from and the experiences they have. In some countries, the families totally depend on teachers to make that decision. So you might have families who are saying, the teachers say, you just do what you have to do and that's done. But that's not the system that we operate in. So those families might be thinking that. However, I think the education piece, as you're saying, is so important for them to understand how the choices are intertwined with the outcomes and the pathways that are going to be available or not available. And I've spoken with several families who unfortunately recognize how those are connected when it's not too late, but it would have been better if they were knowledgeable about it earlier in their child's, education career. So it's so important.
Knowledge is power, and we're working closely with our multi-language learner departments as well as our ISS departments to make sure they have all the information. And with our graduation coaches for our Black students, with our community liaisons, they all have access to this information, so they can have those conversations with families too, who are asking those questions, and same with their Swiss workers. So we're trying to make sure that we empower everyone to be able to understand and help navigate our system.
That's a good question. This is such great information. Sometimes I feel like I'm far away from high school. A lot of information gets lost when it comes to like older kids, grade 6 to 8. Like the information doesn't even get home. Especially the postcard might not even get home in the bag. So are there other ways you guys have thought to engage parents? Maybe like, I see you guys have team for each high school. So maybe like, I don't know if it's feasible, but if there's a parent teacher night, at elementary school, maybe they can set up a desk, like, so the parents have a direct contact or something.
So we've engaged principals in those conversations, and some principals are choosing to bring out their student success teachers. The other thing they have done, a lot of the principals, they've included this information in their newsletters. So they're taking, every month we send out actually an update on new things with our student success teachers, and they're taking pieces out and including in their newsletters. I know that we just had the media release for 30 credits my way, so I anticipate that is going to be in the newsletters for elementary schools coming around. It just might not have gone out there. So we are trying to put it out there in many different ways. We had Pine Ridge had an open house for grade 8 and all of their programs. We had our teachers there. We're doing a lot of different types of schools. So yeah, definitely if that's something that you feel is important, I do encourage parents to also ask questions to their principals and ask if they can bring them in. I have provided a variety of different ways that we can engage our student success teachers with parents, and it's up to the principal though to invite them. So.
Yeah.
This information is also going to be in our winter edition of the PIC newsletter.
Yes, definitely. Colleagues put it in and I've put it in there as well. So it's going out to all parents. And often we also send things directly to students, especially in high school. We also direct email out to our students information.
Sounds good.
So I have 5 kids, and the last one was a grade 8 last year, so she was the first one to have the liaison from the board come in regularly, and it was really good. I think it was really good for us. Good program. I see the difference.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Well, thank you for taking the time to hear our initiatives. And if there's any questions, there's our contact information. Please feel free to reach out directly to either of us.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I had one question. I don't know if I could ask it. I put it in the chat, but I don't know if anyone is checking the chat. So I just wanted to know the information that was shared. Where can we locate that information? Is it on the DDSB website, or will the slides that were presented this evening be shared so that we can refer to the information for future reference?
Yes, it is on the DDSB website. The slides can be definitely shared. We also have some information here that we can get more postcards and send it out to all the SDCs as well.
That would be great. I would really appreciate having a copy of the slides. And then
if you don't get something, just reach out to us, and we'll make sure that you get it. We'll send things out if there's something missing that you felt you want. Let us know and we'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will now hear from James Klednicki, principal of Donald A. Wilson Secondary School in Nifty. James will present you and the of action to support 2SL LGBTQI students, staff, and families. And sorry, we also have Margaret Lorenzares online who will be joining us.
Thank you very much for having us. I'm going to project because I've got a mask. I've got kiddos at home who are sick, and so I don't want to infect anybody here. We're not sending you home with anything but information and knowledge. Thank you for hosting us. My name is James Klednicki. I'm the proud principal at Donald A. Wilson Secondary School. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am here supported by Margaret Lazarus, Superintendent for Equitable Education, and representing a far larger writing committee for this document. And we're absolutely thrilled to introduce you to DDSB's new compendium of action to support 2SL LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and community. I understand a link to the document has been provided for you. And so hopefully we're going to reference a couple of pages in the document as we go through, and we will be taking questions at the end. So I'm going to start with the purpose of the compendium document, which is to support the creation and maintenance of safer spaces for 2S LGBTQI+ students, staff, and community members in our schools. Through the DDSB's multi-year strategic plan and guiding principles, the DDSB has made a strong and clear commitment to creating the conditions for all students to reach their full potential, to find joy, and to explore their talents and to author their own stories and, to 30 credits my way, chart their own paths. The DDSB is creating learning and working environments where 2S LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families will flourish through meaningful learning, connected communities, and personal and collective well-being. Centering the human rights of students, staff, and community supported by our inherent duty-bearer responsibilities is critical to meeting those commitments, and this compendium of action reaffirms our human rights commitments and ensures students, staff, and community members are welcomed in safe and inclusive environments across the district. Forwarding my own slides as I talk, so I apologize if I get a slide behind me. The DDSB is committed to dismantling homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, and all forms of discrimination and oppression in our schools and workplaces to ensure that 2S LGBTQI+ students and staff feel affirmed in who they are in safer spaces for everyone. Student rights, staff rights, and duty-bearer responsibilities are critical in support of 2S LGBTQI+ persons who have faced unique obstacles. We recognize that this compendium is just one support in the development and maintenance of consistent spaces that affirm and embrace identity, which are, as I've said, critical to well-being. Each of us, including allies, have an important role to play. Each of us is compelled to be involved in ongoing learning, listening, and acting on behalf of all members of our community. Next slide. 2S LGBTQIA+ folks have existed throughout time, and as educators, we need resources in order to speak to this reality. This compendium supports staff with information as a starting point to building their understanding. In this document, and this is where I'm going to be referencing pages, so for those of you who have it up at home and are keeping track as we flip through, page 20 is going to be coming up in a second. In this document, you'll find information regarding the importance of recognizing intersectionality as the foundation of diverse student and staff identity. You'll also find, amongst other items, specifically on page 20, Indigenous resources supporting Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer identity, which were made in collaboration with our Indigenous Education Department and a Two-Spirit advisor, as well as a historical timeline based on data from specifically the DDSB and information gathered from the LGBTQ education timeline, which was published by the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario and the Canadian Lesbian and Gay Archives. Of note, our own timeline highlights the year 2006 as the start of DDSB's first GSA, which was once known as the Gay Straight Alliance and is now often renamed the Gender and Sexuality Alliance. We also want to highlight that even today, not all DDSB schools do have and support a GSA. As you can see, there are many helpful resources within the document, but it doesn't end there. Our document also outlines ways to show up and take action together for our 2S LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families. Now, a little bit of data for you. As you review and consider the information on this slide, it's essential to bear in mind that it is the systemic and intersectional discrimination and oppression against 2S LGBTQIA+ communities that negatively affect mental health and well-being and create oppressive and unsafe environments. Presently, there is a need in the system to ensure staff have adequate resources and support across all schools to create safety for our 2S LGBTQIA+ students. While there are resources, we needed a compendium that is in alignment with the multi-year strategic plan and anti-oppression strategy to quote unquote tie it all together, so to speak. This compendium of action will provide the means to support schools throughout the system on how to create these safe environments. To be clear, and in reference to the data there, the 2S LGBTQIA+ does not cause increased mental illness. It's the systemic oppression that leads to increased vulnerability for members of this community. As a district, we must actively challenge anti-2S LGBTQIA+ discrimination, hate, oppression, and erasure wherever and whenever possible, so that each student, staff, family, and community member can be safely visible every day. It is important to understand and reflect on these experiences to effectively plan, support, and address safety and well-being for 2S LGBTQIA+ people in our schools and in our workplaces. In 2024, the DDSB released a new anti-oppression strategy, which I brought a copy of, which I understand has also been posted to the website. Did I say that? Oh, yes, is not sure. Yes. Which supports staff with addressing and dismantling racism and discrimination. We've aligned the new compendium with the 5 priorities of the anti-oppression strategy. And again, for those of you who are counting pages, page 29 of the document, specifically, item 1, represent, affirm, and recognize all identities. Item 2, cultivate safe learning and working environments. Item 3, foster meaningful connections. Item 4, support mental health and well-being. And number 5, create accessible learning opportunities. In each priority, we have identified specific commitments, which represent the needs expressed specifically by the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, followed by actions, which are broad-based directions in support of individuals, as well as complete staff teams, to be doing the work, which is the important part, actually doing the work, not just having a dusty document that sits on the shelf. These commitments and actions were originally articulated in the Visible Everyday Recommendations document, which was presented to senior administration back in January of 2022. So we are 3 years from the presentation of that original document, and we have a compendium, which is lovely. That original set of recommendations were based on input gathered from 3 main stakeholder groups: students, staff, and families and community members. To support ongoing reflection, growth, and next step planning, consideration questions have also been provided in the compendium as a starting point for school learning teams to get going. All of this is part of our duty bearer responsibilities. At this point, I'm going to throw it over to Mark.
Thank you, James. And I want us to recognize on this slide, the next slide, learning together, that part of our responsibilities as a board is to work together to create inclusive, safe, and welcoming schools for all of our students, and that's within our control. So we want to make sure that every student feels safe, regardless of their identity. And we know that Maya Angelou, who is a famous American poet, she said, as we know better, we do better. And so our job is to do better and to support this community. The compendium, as well as the DDSB website, has links to resources regarding anti-oppression and connections to community partners who are an integral component of support for the DDSB 2S LGBTQIA+ community. Additionally, we have included links to support and encourage personal learning and scholarship to move individuals beyond the question of, is this happening, to what actions can we undertake to ensure that we do better, to ensure that all students feel welcome and safe in our schools. And on behalf of the writing team that we put together and the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, we just want to thank you as a group, the Parent Involvement Committee, for giving us the opportunity to give you just a glimpse of the kind of support that we are putting in place for students and families who identify as 2S LGBTQIA+. Next and final slide. I want you to look at the quote on the screen. 2S LGBTQ students need educators to explicitly and visibly support, respect, include, and validate them, all of which is exactly what every student in every school wants and is entitled to expect. So this compendium is to support an identity, but that identity, as with all identities in our board, our job as staff, teachers, as students, is to respect each other and to ensure that our buildings, our schools are safe and inclusive and welcoming for all students. So I want to thank you for listening to us tonight. And if you have any questions, we are happy to take them. Any questions?
I was just gonna ask, like, I was looking at, the data presented. And I'm assuming this is from a Durham District School Board, it's Durham District School, up there. Is there like anything after 2021, like these updated numbers?
This is actually sets of data from the DDSB School Climate Survey in the middle, and from the EGAL School Climate Survey. And I'll be honest, I feel like Khalid, who said there are moments where I remember the acronyms, and there are moments where I forget the acronyms. And so I'm looking at EGAL and I'm looking to my left and right to have people go, I can't remember either. So, but this EGAL did a survey a number of years ago in regards to safe spaces in schools. And then recently, their most recent survey is the 2021. I understand they have an updated survey coming through, but we wanted the most recent, most relevant.
Canadian.
And Canadian based, yes. So Canadian based for EGAL, and then DDSB based for the middle bit of data. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I guess the biggest concern is, I bet one of my children is Indigenous, two of them. They've been unsafe in school and had situations and teachers that were inappropriate. So I went through the Ontario Teacher College to see why people lost their, why teachers had lost their jobs. And not a single teacher had lost their job because of racist comments. One lost her job because she tripped a kindergarten kid, but it's like the Teachers College is letting teachers who are racist stay within the teaching community. Like it almost feels like when we had an incident, the principal's like, all I can do is send them to a training class. I just wish the board would be like, this is what we're going to do with staff that are not supporting our mission, our words.
And so that's a very good concern that you raised. And we do have a process when staff do violate some of our values and our commitments. They certainly they do go through the process through People and Culture, that's our HR, and are dealt with in a manner that's appropriate to what has been done or committed by them. So there is a process, and staff do have conversations, and we do have a disciplinary process in place for teachers who do violate our values. We know that the Ontario College of Teachers, they have their process, and there's a standard that they need to have teachers reach, but we do our own process outside of that as well.
We do have a policy and procedure, and there's one that particularly relates to that online that parent can use to inform us some of those concerns, which is transparent on our website for the steps that we take. Questions? Others? Questions? Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night. Miss you. And then we have
Here.
projection.
So what's up?
Yes, we'll now hear from Stephanie Elmore from Positive School Climates, who's joining us virtually.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present an idea to this committee for some feedback and some of your thinking. I'm going to avail myself of Nicole Brown at points during this conversation, as we have been engaged in some conversations about how to partner together to provide an opportunity of learning for our parents and caregivers across the district, really focus on enhancing protective factors that might mitigate some of the challenges that we as parents often navigate in our efforts to support student well-being and mental health. If I think about some feedback I've received about how the learning parent series, some of the themes that have been popping up around adolescent mental health, stress management, the use of social media, tips for positive engagement with our kids, just in general, how to talk to kids, general themes around supporting their learning. If we think about the board's recognition that good mental health is important and foundational to achievement and well-being, the thinking around how to collectively strengthen our capacity as an entire community so that we are creating those spaces where our students feel welcome, included, accepted, where all of us as a community have those places where we're actively promoting positive school climates for our students and for our parents and family. So we began to think about a potential speaking or learning series done in partnership with family and community engagement, as well as positive school climate and mental health, looking at leaning into the wisdom and expertise of Dr. Jean Clinton. Now, some of you may have heard about her. She is actually a clinical professor at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neuroscience at McMaster. She has actually been a consultant to many children and youth mental health programs, to child welfare, to primary care. She was even appointed as an education advisor to the Premier of Ontario and the Minister of Education between 2014 and 2018. You may have heard of her book, Love Builds Brains. She has the ability to bring scientifically based wisdom to the audience in a conversational style. And when you think about adolescent mental health, you think about stress management, social media, those themes that came out of the last event with Robin Hanley Defoe, I believe. This Dr. Jean Clinton has a focus on resiliency and empathy and education through the power of connection. And when you think about that connection, she addresses the challenges to well-being. She addresses why we should care about that. She talks about the protective factors for children and what resilient children, resilient adults look like, all from the perspective of promoting learning, ensuring relationships and connection are key, all in support of well-being. And if you think about well-being, connection, and meaningful learning, those are the three pillars of our strategic plan. And specific to well-being, we're looking at creating safe, caring, respectful environments where everyone can thrive. Our mental health and well-being action is dedicated to those everyday conditions that support and bolster and foster well-being amongst our students. And the ministry has said to us as a board, we need to be partnering with our families in supporting our collective knowledge around how to support the mental health and well-being of our students. And so actually, if I can get you to go back a slide, where that is taking us in our collective planning is an idea that we want to put in front of you around a learning series of which we'd like to have your feedback around. And we know that when we think about positive school environments, we know that there are many challenges that our youth face. You talked about wanting to learn about social media. We know that there is problematic cell phone use. We know that addictive behaviors in general are constantly pressuring our students. And so we wanted an opportunity to acknowledge, to validate these challenges and provide our families with a way to navigate conversations about these issues with their children, our students. And part of that is it becomes protective to the risks that surround our youth relative to all of that, to mental health, to social media, to stress, to learning pressures. And Dr. Jean Clinton has a lot of skill in being able to bring that forward in a conversation that creates the conditions for learning amongst us all. And so one of the things that we were hoping to do is actually bring her in almost, if you see on the screen, multiple ways, but specifically around parents is one, to speak directly to you as a PIC group, to really begin to introduce relationship, deep learning, and well-being, and all of these factors and themes that support student well-being. Sorry, I lost everything on my screen. We're good? Okay. We wanted to bring her in to speak to this group because there's an appreciation of the leadership that you have at a district level in support of our students, your children. And as you think about supporting all the SCCs across the district, how do we take information that Dr. Clinton can offer us around threading together well-being, meaningful learning, connected community, so we can stay attached to the themes that matter to you: stress management, social media, adolescent mental health, tips for positive engagement, themes around learning. What would this group want to learn and know from her practice wisdom? How can that then set the stage for us offering a system-wide parent conference where she could come in person and speak to us about these themes of well-being, meaningful learning, and connected communities, and how connection becomes protective to the challenges our youth are facing as we navigate relationship with them? Learn how to have conversations about that in ways that are really meaningful for you, us as parents, and for our children. And then we'd consider bringing her back to the same group almost as a debrief. This happened. What do we understand? And as we kind of think forward to the next school years with our ongoing support of SCCs and parent community at large. So this is a bit of a big picture thinking. There are some thoughts as well as thinking about what in that understanding and knowledge and learning, and Dr. Clinton refers to herself as a knowledge translator. What is knowledge can she translate to us that can be similar but different for our educators who are surrounding your children in a different way? And so today we wanted to bring this idea: what if we brought in Dr. Clinton for this purpose, for you specifically based on your role, to all parents in alignment with the Ask His around the parenting series, as well as back to this group for debriefing and planning forward for the next academic school year. So I wanted to invite this consideration of this group and get your feedback to help Nicole Brown and I and Superintendent Candace as we think about how to support our families with a parent series and a learning opportunity that can really help us facilitate the conversations that parents are asking support for as children navigate some of these challenges along life's journey. So maybe we'll start with any questions about what this potential training opportunity might be, and then just to clarify whatever it is that I just said, and then move into, so what do you think? What would be important for you? And are there any elements in the planning process that you would want us to really lean into and consider?
So any questions from anyone around? I mean, this has been a highlight also from all of our surveys, is always one of the top concerns from everything we do. And you'll see that in some of our survey gathering that we're going to share whenever we do our updates from subcommittees. I think this is a great idea, and especially the plan, how you put the proposal forward. I think we can get the most out of the presentation. But my question here was, we talked about the hybrid event. Because I feel like sometimes it is hard to grab attention of all the parents that are out there. So is there a way to maybe record this and have it accessible so the parents can still parents who cannot make that event can still have access to the event. I guess information, information there.
Yeah, that's a really reasonable request. I can absolutely include that in the discussions with Dr. Clinton. Part of that might be just in terms of how she holds sort of the information that she shares as quote unquote her property, but I will absolutely ask her. I know that there has been some success in looking at watch parties, and so I don't know if that's what you're suggesting, but this opportunity that it is archived for families that might not be able to watch it. So I'm happy to engage her in that conversation.
Even if it's for a time period, because we know that it's, for some of these things, it's not in memoriam. So we have to put a time limit on it, but maybe that's something that can be considered.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah,
just a question around the thinking about format. You say parent conference symposium. Are you looking at that she would be like keynote speaker, and then there would be other actually like community partners, kiosks, or is this more of a presentation by Dr. Jean herself?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question and up for discussion. I think some initial thinking that Nicole Brown and I were having was whether she would come. It would be an evening event, and we may have community partners that are family focus centered support be made available almost like a kiosk fair, so that families can have access to community resources that are dedicated to supporting families. Some of those details have not been confirmed, and we appreciate that bringing this here is about generating some thinking around that. So I appreciate you putting that forward as a consideration. Or are you putting that forward as a consideration? That's a question.
It was a question, maybe a consideration.
Trustee Linton has a question online.
Thank you. Not necessarily a question, just a thought and comment, because I always get a little nervous when we try and have like one speaker, because the challenges of our students are complex. And there's many issues. So you mentioned social media, but there is a deep dive. You could do a symposium on social media and some of the challenges and how to navigate it as a parent alone. So I like what I see, and I was just looking up some information and see that there is a skill set and knowledge base. But when we're talking about, kind of putting them all together, I would, almost, and I think maybe to the question ahead, see this as being part of a speaker series where you have subject matter experts in some specific areas. In terms of some of the challenges, I'm thinking about, we're seeing this phenom of some of our students going missing. And where are they, and what can parents do to support our children staying in the home and navigate some of their challenges? We just heard about the data on our 2S LGBTQIA students and some of the challenges, and how do some parents supporting them navigate this, as well as racialized students, and so I guess my thought would be, as we're trying to identify what some of the, what are some of the key and pivotal topics that as parents they want information on, and then can we match that with subject matter areas in those specific areas, as opposed to having one person try and cover, an array of topics, but not necessarily meeting them all, if we're going to have parents kind of take time out of their schedules to hear this information.
I really appreciate that. I can imagine as a parent myself, there's specific concerns that parents may be navigating that's unique to their children. And we know that that some of the stressors that our students are navigating are not general in the way that I hear you, Stephen, hear me speak about what Dr. Jean Clinton can offer. I think I would offer I appreciate those are speaker series committee that looks at that. I think where Dr. Jean Clinton could provide some entry into some of those concerns is she really identifies herself as an upstreamist. So what do I mean by upstream? You know, as our kids kind of navigate through life and some of the risks that might make some of those challenges that you identified, not all of them, sort of more challenging for our students, and how we then have to intervene once these challenges have sort of taken over in a way that's concerning for us in a student's life. One of the things that I think this opportunity with this particular expert in the field offers us is to really think about those protective factors that mitigate against some of the risks, specific, I would say, around social media, substance use, and some of the other challenges that may have been identified, stress management. She's a bit of a guru around social emotional learning as well. And so some of that upstream work. So what are those protective factors that can help mitigate against the risks that some of our kids might find themselves navigating? It doesn't necessarily mean they won't deal with those risks, but it does suggest to us as families and as parents and as caregivers, what are some of those upstream protective pieces do we really want to make sure that we're leaning into in support of trying to mitigate the impact of risk? And so is it specific to each one of any one of the things that you mentioned? Not necessarily. Is it protective and supportive and fosters the conditions across relationships that might help ensure a sense for our children to navigate those in a way that they may more successfully merge through and out of? I do believe that is something she's quite skilled at. It doesn't preclude future deeper dives, but it may be really important foundational pieces of which more specifics can launch from and through after, if that makes sense.
And Stephanie, I'm gonna add to that with what Stephen has brought up, which are good pieces, because to your point, we do have a group that looks at the learning, our speaker series, I should say. So we've already had one, we have another one coming up next week that was based on some feedback requests from families last year. If we set some of the foundational pieces on working with Dr. Jean, I think one of the pieces you talk about is that post-planning and debrief. And that can be some of the planning for our speaker series moving forward and even into the next year. Because Stephen, you bring up some really great pieces that, you know, we have to structure that in to support moving forward. And I think that that might be helpful for planning for next year, because that's something we wanted to kind of back up. We changed our PIC grouping to go through to the end of this year to restart getting new people before we leave this school year, instead of trying to get them by October, which means that a lot of the planning can happen now, moving into next year, instead of waiting and having that gap. So I think that that will bring up kind of that transition piece you're talking about, Stephen. And if you have some suggestions or ideas, definitely talking to Charmin and her team subcommittee for our speaker series will help with that, because we do that as a hybrid and a watch party, and slightly different than this, as you're saying, Stephanie. But I mean, there's no reason why we can't even move forward with some of these pieces from her as well next year. So I think there's the two folds, and I think learning some of that foundational piece is a great idea, in my opinion.
And if I could add to that, sorry, if I think the feedback that you offered, Stephen, is something that would be important to bring to Dr. Jean Clinton. So that sits in the back of her mind as sort of the overarching wanting to do next step. I can imagine that wouldn't inform how she structures her engagement with us. So thank you for that, and that will definitely come into planning conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Stephanie, thank you for this. I really like the layout of kind of what's being proposed here with the pre-planning and then the event and the post debrief. And I think the answer to my question is maybe getting a little bit clearer as other people ask their questions and we talk about it a bit more, because my first thought looking at the pre-planning where it says Dr. Clinton will engage with PIC to introduce us to the concepts to be shared, but then I thought, well, who's going to decide on what the concepts to be shared are? You know, are we going to brainstorm or how is that going to happen? And then I think it kind of fits with what Trustee Linton was saying around some of these key specific things. But I think the clarification I'm looking for, and I think you started to provide a bit of it, is Dr. Clinton is doing more of kind of like an overarching, she's not going to be speaking into like real specifics in some of these topics, but more of kind of like a general overview with the knowledge base and the theories and understandings that she has about how we can approach some of these things. So that's what she would be sharing with us in the pre-planning, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, I welcome feedback on what would be helpful to this committee for her, and her engagement with this, with what you think would be helpful. When I think about this committee's leadership of parent engagement throughout the district, what would be important for this committee to know? So if you think about her message, maybe there's underlying themes that cross her entire message to a wide audience, but how that looks for the specific audience. So you as PIC, our families in general, what does that mean for you in your role? So if this committee is looking at weaving together well-being, meaningful connection, and connected communities, your role in implementing the pillars. And she's someone that talks about what are those challenges to our young people's well-being, why we should care about that, what's protective, what do we mean by resilient children, resilient adults. And if this committee is taking a leadership role in thinking about how to support SECs at large, is there something within your role that would be helpful for you to know through this, through her, in support of that shared messaging? And again, that's part of coming here, is to get some feedback around what would be helpful for you. If that's the backdrop, what would be important in support of your leadership across the district and the role that you hold on this committee?
So then the pre-planning is almost like two-pronged. It's like she'll be talking about things that will be covered at the main event, but we can also discuss the things, as you were saying, that would be important for us to learn and be able to take back and share.
Because I think we can also provide it.
Yeah.
What would be at that event based on what you're hearing from her.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure, like, if the pre-planning was, you know, we're kind of getting this
I
presentation.
think she's being responsive to what we feel our needs are gonna be.
Okay.
She's gonna share some background.
Yeah.
Think about some of our pieces.
And then we can work it through.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's amazing.
And having done many trainings with her, she's very reflexive and reflective. And so if as a committee we said, I hear what you're saying, I wonder about, this is something that I think she's very skilled at in her many years of providing opportunities to kind of work through some, you know, whether you want to call it science-based wisdom on some of these really key factors in a way that's conversational. And I've appreciated that there may be a interest amongst this committee that I think she'd be very open to hearing. I do think that's sort of the fundamental entry point, that notion of protective factors, that upstream. I think that as you enter into these conversations, your perspectives are really important.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And in case you guys have more feedback to give, we can take this offline if you guys can send more, I guess, feedback to Stephanie or
I think what we could also do is see who's maybe interested in help, because to do some of this would be separate meetings.
Yeah.
to kind of figure out. So we'll send out that question if people are interested. What some of their commitment could be if they are interested, because we know that you're all busy people. But maybe we can, and then being able to share back for any feedback from the rest of the community if you can't come to those specific meetings, if that would work. Would that work with you, Stephanie? If we kind of support you and we'll kind of figure out a team to kind of come together a little bit on that pre-planning and planning and so on?
No, yeah, that sounds great. And the feedback so far around, again, Trustee Linton going a little bit deeper on different issues, I think is important for us as a smaller planning group to go away and think about, and perhaps maybe speak with Jean about as well, and in combination with what you were just mentioning, Candace. So thank you for that.
I think it's exciting. It's great.
I think it's great. I think it'll be good. All right. Thanks everyone for giving me the opportunity to share this pretty exciting opportunity for us as a district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
We now invite our PIC subcommittees to share some information and updates. And I think we're going to start with Christine Lowe with our regional SEC updates.
Sure. So this year, rather than one large SEC meeting, we did have 3 separate regional sessions for Ajax Pickering, Whitby Oshawa, and then one for the Northern region. A survey link was shared at each event to capture some feedback from our families. And pictured here is a brief snapshot of some of the information that was received. In the first graph, we asked what extra help or information would make your school community council work better. And almost 68% indicated that they wanted to have more opportunities to network with other SCCs. 65% were also looking for fundraising ideas, which can also be realized by networking with other SCCs. So we are going to be looking as a subcommittee on ways that we can create more opportunities for sharing. Some other responses included reference documents, which can be found on the page of the DDSB website, as well as training workshops, which we're also looking into ways that we can support. On the second graph, on the next slide, they asked for a general rating of school engagement, and we can see that, while not bad, there is always room for improvement, and we are always looking for ideas and ways to better engage our parents and families. When asked about what's going well or what issues and concerns there may exist, some SEC members had this following information shared. For example, we are doing an open house and also moving our next SEC meeting to an alternate location. Transportation is a barrier in order to try and get families to events. I would love if schools rotated hosting a regional SEC meeting at their home school. Be a great way to visit different schools and have SCCs be able to brag about the cool things that are happening in their building. I think an SCC boot camp or training for new members would be great, or partnering growing SCCs with more established SCCs for mentorship. And then some concerns around finding it hard to build a diverse community and committee.
There's an expansion.
I only have 2. So I think what the plan is with this subcommittee is just to be thinking about next year, and do we want it, so our first year we did a very regional event here at the board office, and then had some separate workshops you could go to, and then some networking. And then this time we were trying to be responsive to the requests that we had, which were to go to the different communities, which were well received. I think they could be better attended in some cases. And should there be a combo of those two? So that's kind of the thinking for next year of what our planning before we leave this year. What is next year going to look like for our regionals? Because it is really important for our SCCs to be able to come together to network and talk. And that's one of the pieces they see really valuable. I love to see about the training, because that's some of the stuff we're talking about here with our speaker series, and some of those pieces around this new initiative that Stephanie was mentioning. So that's great, because that kind of also supports that, but also probably some of the training around even fundraising and There is appropriate fundraisers and not appropriate and so some of those rules and regulations, we have done some videos in the past that go over those pieces and maybe redoing them, updating them. There's lots of opportunities to be able to support the SCCs in the way that they're asking. We just have to kind of come up with some ideas and get some other people involved from some of the SCCs. You as a regional PIC do not have to do everything, but we can provide you with some chairs, the SCC chairs within your area that might come together to do some work as well. So I think us moving beyond just us and moving out more is an important piece, which we've not really done in the past. So thinking about how we can share that opportunity and you being those regional people that they're connecting with. So we don't do a great job of that, so we need to do better on that. So think about that as well when we prepare these months that we have some time off, because I think it's an important piece that's missing, is that connection back to our SCCs in a meaningful way. That reciprocity is an important piece.
Any questions, concerns? Great. So now I'm gonna pass it on to Nadia for communication.
Thank you.
Sorry, my apologies.
Sorry. See David. Pop it. Sorry.
That's okay.
There you are.
No, oh, is my mic there? Yeah, sorry. The only thing I wanted to add is it has actually come up with some of the other trustees about wanting to get out into the community to hear from community members, looking at, whether it's a town hall format or others, just as we, have to look into the budget and other policies and procedures through the trustee role. So I really like this and just some of the thinking around getting into the schools. Maybe my question would be, if we are doing that, would there be any appetite for trustees from those areas to attend some of these meetings if we're moving it forward?
Of course, and always with our regional, particularly our regional SCCs, we've had a lot of trustees come to those events. So absolutely, you're always invited to the bigger regional as well as the individual ones for the separate areas. Definitely, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, Steve. Moving on to applications.
Okay, so apologies on behalf of Frank, he is away this evening. So the team, the communications subcommittee has been working behind the scene, putting the finishing touches on the winter edition of the PIC newsletter. This will be shared with all DDSB families and include updates from some for DDSB departments. And we're open to having alternative ideas to the traditional newsletter to better reach our families. Some of the ideas that we've thought about already is using our outdoor signs to communicate key pieces with families, SMS messages, and also the traditional newsletter. So we're open to feedback on the ways that we can better engage families. So the newsletter should be out at the end of this month. Thank you.
Any questions?
I was just gonna say any questions.
Yes, we're good. Now moving on to slide our programs. Apologies on behalf of Kim. She's attending the SCC meeting at her school, so she's unable to attend today. So I'm presenting information on her behalf. The program committee convened yesterday to review decisions on applications. As of January 21st, 2025, we received 43 proposals and have approved 10 applications with a commitment to provide approximately 27,000 in requesting funding. Majority of these grants are focused on facilitating STEM learning experiences for families, promoting educational engagement across various disciplines. One notable proposal came from Donald A. Wilson Secondary School, which has partnered with its families of schools, Metacrest, Brooklyn Village, Captain Michael, and Boss, Jack Miner, and Williamsburg, to submit a combined grant application. We haven't seen that before.
Project aims to engage and support parents, guardians, caregivers, and students who are transitioning to high school or transitioning to post-secondary. The event will feature performances by DAW's group, discussions of the benefits of enrolling in French immersion, and workshops designed to provide insights from individuals who have already navigated the transition to high school or post-secondary, offering practical advice and addressing common questions. So slide 2. So here's some photos from Roberta Bondar's pro-grant event. The event brought parents, guardians, and children together for a creative evening, a paint night hosted by Arts on Fire. It was a wonderful opportunity to foster family engagement through artistic expression. So congratulations to Dr. Roberta Bondar for hosting a successful event. So as a final note, I'd like to remind all schools to take advantage of this valuable opportunity to secure additional funding for family engagement events. That's it for us.
Thank you.
And I know that there are, you're meeting again to go over some of the other final proposals, but there's still time to get other proposals in. So still some to go through, as you saw, because there's been lots of I don't want to say last minute, it's not last minute, we left it more open than last year, but it's great with 43 schools so far participating. It's fabulous, so getting the money out for them would be great.
That was one of our questions actually yesterday when we got together, is what is the deadline?
So what we were doing last year was that we haven't really had a firm deadline. If we still had some monies left, we would offer that to schools that still had things they wanted to do. Because we want to make sure we spend it. So if something comes in at a later time, sometimes that information goes back. We have to get them to tweak it in order to fulfill the policy, the requirements from the ministry to be able to be a program that's not coming from your fundraising monies, because you can do what other things with your fundraising, but it's very specific with the programs from the ministry, and gives them an opportunity to fix it and bring it back. So we have sometimes that back and forth, but we always work with the schools, right, and get them their money in some ways. As much as we can.
Excellent. Yeah, can I have a quick question? Is there somewhere that we post who has gotten the programs and what they've done?
We had one that we put out at the regional event. We can send it back out to everybody to share, and that was for some of the networking about being able to think about
good idea.
Yes. So we did, yes, we do. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, we do. We'll send that back out.
To these questions.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were actually talking about this. How can we make this more lucrative and get more people to come in? So, me and Kimberly and Saika was thinking we create a repository, and I think we talked about this before, of like what has been done before, what worked, and have links to like the speakers that worked well, like, you know, so that, because I think certain schools don't apply, like, well, that's a lot of work to go find something to do. Whereas if you look at
and be able to network.
Yeah.
And maybe that could collaborate, like I'm just thinking with maybe the board's social media. I know like I will follow my kids' school and see things, so I'm thinking if I saw a post that was like, oh, Maple Ridge won a program and got to do this thing, I'd be like, oh, okay.
So media. Communications.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll have to, from the subcommittees to that communication piece, be able to do those kinds of things. That'd be great. Yes.
Anything else? Okay. So, I think moving on to Charmaine for our speaker series.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So great that we had some free discussion about our speaker series. Emily and Alyssa and Archie and myself have been meeting a few times about planning ahead for our speaker series. We wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of and promoting our second engagement speaker series event, which is on January 30th, with Roland Ashiampam, who he and his team have worked in many of our schools, introducing the in-school sewing program to their students and working to break stereotypes for inspiring and uplifting children. the theme of his event and topic of discussion will be inspirational speaking with a focus on overcoming obstacles while building self-confidence. And we're following the same format as before the first event with Dr. Robin Hanley Defoe, where parents and guardians can log on virtually or attend in person to a watch party. And really do encourage family, schools and SECs to work together to create a watch party. Gives families an opportunity to come together on a shared topic of interest and just another opportunity to engage with each other. There is funding for refreshments and door prizes and to give away to those who attend. And again, another way for people to connect within their schools. Some schools have combined this event with an SEC meeting, and I'm moving forward with that. So looking forward to that coming up. And we are also continuing to look at options for the speaker series coming up in the next year. So Stephanie's presentation was timely. Your feedback was great, very supportive as well. So thank you.
They do an excellent story series of.
They do,
yeah.
He was on, him and his wife, I don't know if their children still go to that school, but when my eldest daughter was in senior kindergarten, we were on the SCC together. So I was just Googling, because I'm like, I remember that face.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think Evie Finn.
Pardon?
I think his kids went to maybe Evie Finn.
No, it was Woodcrest.
Oh, Woodcrest.
Yeah, it was Woodcrest.
Was it Woodcrest, really?
Yeah, in Oshawa. Yeah, that's right.
I think also they were there for some reason, because I think Frank had them as a parent as well. But
yeah, so that's really cool.
Lovely, spread the word next Thursday. Local guy. A local guy.
Because his story, his life story is really important too, and it really kind of ties into the message that he shares. So, yeah.
Anything else? And any more questions? Okay. So moving on to engaging our diverse community. Passing it to.
Oh, it's gonna pass the line.
Of course.
I invite the team to share along with me. Okay, where do we start? So we had a brainstorming session, just thinking about ways that we were going to engage our diverse communities, knowing that we have hubs across the system. So you can see there, we've got some hub locations. We've got Ajax High School, Brock, Eastdale, GL Roberts, Henry Street, and Aurora McLaughlin. We wanted to be able to use these hubs to engage our communities around Huron. One of the things we brainstormed and talked about was, what would it look like? What are some topics that are relevant and that would be supporting families and students alike? And so some things that we talked about, immigrants and helping them through the process. What does that look like? How can we support? What questions might they have? How do they navigate? Another thing we talked about was just technology in general. Some families do not know how to navigate some of the technological world that we're living in, and getting some more learning around that would be really important, and learning how to navigate that, and just a general of how to navigate the system. We're not all familiar with the education system, and it can be tricky to navigate, and it's important for us to have those conversations so that parents know how to seek support and work alongside to ensure their children are being successful. A big thing that came up, so one thing we talked about was, I guess in general, there used to be something called parents in the know. So something we have to look into, but just getting information so parents are in the know and can network and talk along and learn things together. But also the intergenerational space is really, there's such a disconnect between the generations, and how do we create opportunities for that building of relationship and connection through these hubs and the diverse communities that we are serving. So those were some of the things that we talked about. We're thinking about names and thinking about how do we market this so families actually come out and attend, right? But looking at some of the things that you all have shared, there's a lot of ideas in there where we can, how do we bring that down into smaller hubs where we can make those, foster those connections. And I saw the art, like what a great way to start with that intergenerational piece, right? And so that's. And I think some of ours was also discussing what we could do this year or even brainstorm a plan to put into place for next year.
Even if we get one thing done, Great. And before we go further, Stephen, who's gonna bring something up, so I'm gonna be impromptu and stop it. Is that we're talking to Pine Ridge to have a space there, so there will be a Pickering location. I don't wanna hear from you. Yeah, so we're in talks about that, to be able to support a Pickering location to help us with this as well.
And whatever we do at the hubs, we'd like it to be interactive as always, key and important, right? So it's not that you're getting information per se, that someone's talking at you, but it's interactive and we're learning and growing together.
And specific, getting feedback from the community where the hub is or around there, but what their group would find relevant. And one of the examples we used was what we found out anyways, was the example of GL Roberts using their hub to support applications for SIN numbers, replacement of birth certificates and documents like that, navigating those pieces.
And in the Toronto board, when we visited them, they actually offered some certifications for families in the hub. So there might have been a certification for a family in food safety, so that even the family could be working in a restaurant, or additional or even the students, because we do offer that at a high school level for some of our SHSM students, but not everybody's in that program. So how can we also offer that to students in this space? So there's a lot.
And in the Ajax Hub, we found out hosts like job prep workshops and like connections to youth community, big job employment opportunities. So. Thank you, Lydia.
Anybody else have a question? Okay. Moving on, and I'm gonna pass this to Ken. Mine's just really brief. There's a couple of consultation requests. One, and just a reminder, this slide deck will come out to you, so you'll have a link to these slides. And a link to those different calendars, but there is a request by January 31st, if you haven't already done so, because it did go out to families, but just a reminder that they're asking some questions around those calendars for next year. If you can provide some input, depending on what area, what you're in a regular calendar or elementary or secondary, to please support answering those questions. There was also an email that went out today looking for representation on the learning resource committee. It had some information there for you to look at. If you're interested, just let us know. If you're on committees already, we'll probably look to those that haven't yet done some committee work, but we'll share that with Superintendent Lauren Bliss, who is running that committee, and we'll get back to you. There'll be some other opportunities for some other consultation on other procedures that are coming out. We have a teaching and learning one coming out soon. So there'll be some interesting ones where we'll ask for some support from this team, or they'll be bringing it to us like Stephanie did for some generalized feedback that can go away and come back. So just a reminder of that consultation role from the capacity of the PIC. So I thank you for that. So before I talk about the upcoming meeting, I just wanted to let you know that the slides will be shared with the links at the end of the meeting. So our next meeting is scheduled for May 27th. As shared earlier by Stephanie from Positive School Climates, we're hoping to have a special presentation event with Dr. Jean Clinton for our PIC members, which would require a separate meeting time. Once the proposal has been approved and a date has been set, we'll share the information with the leadership. So that is all. Thank you for your attendance tonight. And feedback is always welcome. Yes. Thank you. Thanks so much. Hopefully got some. Yeah. That goes for my